The odds of me coming into the rocket business, not knowing anything about rockets, not having ever built anything, I mean, I would have to be insane if I thought the odds were in my favor.
Why even begin?
When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor.
I gave basically both SpaceX and Tesla from the beginning a probability of less than 10% of likely to succeed. In the beginning, I wouldn't even let my friends invest because I don't want to lose their money. You know, I'd rather lose my own money. We almost did die at SpaceX actually. So I budgeted for 3 flights. I mean, technically, I did have a plan where I had money from PayPal. I had like about 180 million from PayPal. And I thought, you know, I'll allocate half of that to SpaceX and Tesla and Solar City, and that should be fine. But then what happened is things cost more and took longer than I thought, so I had a choice of either put the rest of the money in or the companies are going to die. And it's like, so I ended up putting all the money in and borrowing money for rent from friends.
We came very close to both companies not succeeding in 2008. We'd had 3 failures of the SpaceX rocket, so we were 0 for 3. We had the crazy financial recession, the Great Recession. The Tesla financing round had fallen apart because it's pretty hard to raise money for the start of a car company if GM and Chrysler were going bankrupt.
If that 4th launch hadn't worked, that would have been it. We would have not had the resources to mount a 5th.
You couldn't have gone out at that point.
Yes, death would have been, I think, inevitable because we did not have the resources to mount a 5th launch.
I tried very hard to get the right expertise in for SpaceX. I tried hard to find a great chief engineer for the rocket, but the good chief engineers wouldn't join, and the bad ones, well, there was no point in hiring them. So I ended up being chief engineer of the rocket. So if I could have found somebody better, then we would have maybe had less than 3 failures.
Successful entrepreneurs probably come in all sizes, shapes, and flavors. An obsessive nature with respect to the quality of the product is very important.
Really focus on making a product that your customers love. And it's so rare that you can buy a product and you love the product when you bought it. There are very few things that fit into that category. And if you can come up with something like that, your business will be successful for sure. If you get it such that your customers want you to succeed, then you probably will.
When my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hot up we had just one computer. So the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night. 7 days a week, all the time.
It's really a mindset. You have to decide we're going to try to do things differently. You shouldn't do things differently just because they're different. They need to be different and better. But I think you just have to sort of decide. Let's think beyond the normal stuff. And have an environment where that sort of thinking is encouraged and rewarded, and where it's okay to fail as well. Because when you try new things, you try this idea, that idea, well, a large number of them are not going to work. And that has to be okay. If every time someone comes up with an idea, it has to be successful, you're not going to get people coming up with ideas. Just showing up is half the battle. You got to try hard to do it, and don't be afraid of failure. You also need to be rooted in reality. So you shouldn't... It's easy to get high in your own supply. You've got to not be afraid to innovate, but also don't delude yourself into thinking something's working when it's not. Or you're going to get fixated on a bad solution. Yeah, don't be afraid of new arenas. You can get a book, you can learn something, and experiment with your hands and make it happen. Find a way or make a way to get something done. Even if you're the best, there's always a chance of failure. So I think it's important that you really like whatever you're doing. If you don't like it, life is too short. I seem to have a high innate drive, and that's been true even since I was a little kid. I really had a very strong drive. Did all sorts of risky things when I was a kid that why did I do those things? They're crazy.
One of the things that I remember most from my childhood is I
I think 6 or something, maybe around that age. I was just learning to read, basically. And I was grounded one afternoon and prevented from going to play with my cousins who lived on the other side of town. And I disagreed with this, so I escaped from my nanny and walked across town. And I could barely read the road signs. So, I mean, in retrospect, this was obviously a very foolish thing to do because something terrible could have happened to me. I could have been kidnapped or run over or something like that. But I was so determined to go play with my cousins that I basically walked clear across the city, the capital city. My mom got really freaked out because she saw me, just as I was getting to my cousin's house, she saw me walking along the sidewalk and flipped out because she didn't know how I got there. And then I saw her and I ran and climbed up a tree, and I wouldn't come down until they promised they wouldn't punish me and that I could play with my cousins.
I think my sort of drive to get it done is somewhat disconnected from hope, enthusiasm, or anything else. I actually just don't care about hope or enthusiasm, motivation. I just give it everything I've got, irrespective of what the circumstances may be.
People tend to overweight risk on a personal level. It's one thing if you've got, a mortgage to pay and kids to support, and that if you were to deviate from your job, that, well, how are you going to feed your family and pay the rent? And okay, that's understandable. But let's say you're young and you're just coming out of college or coming out of high school or whatever. What do you risk? You're not going to starve. I mean, it's really certainly not in any kind of modern economy. It's so easy to earn enough money just to live somewhere, and it's very easy to do. So I don't know what are they afraid of? They're mostly afraid of failure, I think, but people should be less risk averse when there's not much at risk.
Time to take risk. You don't have, you don't have kids. As you get older, your obligations increase. So and once you have a family, you start taking risk not just for yourself but for your family as well. It gets much harder to do things that might not work out. So now is the time to do that. Before you have those obligations. So I would encourage you to take risks now. Do something bold. You won't regret it.